Empire. Hello, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. What's up? What's up? How we doing today, everybody?
Good, man. How's it going?
Good. I'm doing all right. I'm gonna tell you what I did last night in a little bit, because I actually got to MC the Touchdown Club dinner where we honored John Riggins, Mark Rippon, Jaden Daniels, and obviously all the local high school stars and college stars. So I'll tell you about that a little bit later, but I want to start with what's going on around the league real quick here. Albert Breer did a mailbag for his piece for SI this week, and in it, running backs came up a couple of times, and there were two prominent things that he brought up. Like, spoiler alert, I just got a funny feeling the Commanders are taking a running back, whether it's with their first round pick or their second round pick. I just think that's happening, and I could be wrong about it. I don't really know. I think the door is wide open for them to do a lot of different things. I've described this time as anything but quarterback, because it's like the one thing you know they're not going to take. Everything else is open for debate, like, with maybe the exception of tight end. But if for some reason the crazy tight end was there, which he won't be, but if he was, then I even think they would be open to that too. So it's everything but quarterback, but I'm zeroing in on running back as a possibility. And Albert Breer brought up two names specifically, and well, three. One, Ashton Genty, where, you know, it's consensus around the league that they look at him as Saquon, Bijan, you know, Christian McCaffrey, name the player, you know, the great running back. They see him that way. Therefore, somebody will take him very high, that it will not get anywhere near 29 to get him. The rest of them, it's an extremely deep, probably like a roster changing type player, but it's falling into that category of, well, when do you draft a running back? Which is an old, like, I think is going to start going out the door eventually. I don't know why people have this hang up on, well, I can get a really good running back in the third round. You can get a really good receiver in the third round. It doesn't mean that you're getting Tyreek Hill. Like it's this, I feel like it's the same thing here. And there are a couple of people, in my opinion, in watching, I've talked about them for months, that I think could be really, really massive upgrades for this team. And he brought up both of them. So it always validates, you know, my own personal opinion about watching these guys. And I go, I like them. Like, those are the people I would like. And the two names are the two I've liked from the get-go when I started watching film of running backs. Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, Travion Henderson from Ohio State. I like Judkins as well, but I really like Henderson. I like his run style. I like his big playability. I like when he pops a play off, it's a home run. This is what I think I'm looking for. I'm not looking for someone who's going to plod ahead. We have those people. Like, I don't dislike B-Rob. I think there's been a kind of misconception what's going on here with him on this team. I don't dislike him. I think he could potentially have a future here beyond this season. I really like B-Rob as a person, but he's a singles hitter. He's a doubles hitter. He's not a home run hitter. With a couple of minor exceptions and a misplayed first play against Tennessee, he doesn't have plays like that. And I think this team could use somebody that is not going 3, 4, 5 yards. I find him to be extremely reliable in general. I don't know what happened at the end of the year. And in general, I think he's a very tough, powerful. He was kind of gas in the tank is the way I kind of described him early in the season last year. But I don't think they have a playmaking dynamic. You've got to deal with him running back on this team, which is why I keep leaning into. I think there's a couple of guys here. And Breer brought up both of them, Hampton and Henderson. And here's what he said about both. One, he doesn't think Hampton falls in the Genty category of will go in the top half of the first round, that people have decided he's going to fall in this category of really good running back, but what's the price point? Because we don't want to get, I guess, I don't know, criticized for taking a running back early, because that happens in the draft. And then he brought up Henderson, because when asked about Henderson in his mailbag, they said, who could be a surprise first-round pick? And he said him, which that to me bullseyed us. And in both cases, I've watched both of them. I like them. I like both of them. I think Hampton looks like he could be a star, and Henderson looks like an NFL player who's going to adapt very quickly and could become a home run hitter. And so more and more and more, while I don't know what they're going to do at 29, I really think this is close to higher on the list than I think people initially thought as we head towards the draft.
Well, it's also been a talent discrepancy too. Like we had said, if the guy you pick in the mid first round could be the same guy talent-wise that you get in the 40s or the 50s. Schefter was on Sportsmanlike on our airwaves yesterday. He doubled down on it and said he thinks, and some scouts are saying, the player you get at number 5 could be the same in the 20s or 30s. That's just way the talent is, in this draft. So if, looking at whatever their rankings are, that a running back is ranked higher than, let's say, edge rusher or another defensive player, or, maybe even an offensive tackle or an offensive guard or something like that. As you said, basically any position but quarterback should be on the table here. I would not be surprised one bit if it's running back at that spot, mainly because of the talent discrepancy. And to your point, too, of like, people kind of scoff at the first rounders. Yeah, but at the same time, people have gotten by with that mainly just because it's like, okay, well, if he's good, who cares? Like, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Like, people were going crazy that Detroit drafted him as high as they did. He was only like one of the best running backs in the league last year. So I think the way people look at it now is a little bit different, just in terms of, well, if you make him, or if you take him, he better make it, and he makes it big, then who cares, essentially? So you're basically just gambling for yourself, which is what the draft is in general. But I would not be surprised either if they go running back first round.
I would think, like, especially if you need it, and I would argue the Commanders do, right? And especially if you really truly believe this is a difference-making player, you don't need to apologize for that, drafting that person. Like, I remember the old line from Jay Gruden on Brandon Sheriff was, they gave me a guard, right? Remember that? Because he was top 10 pick. And they said, well, they gave me a guard. And, well, as it turned out, he was for a period of time the best guard in football. So you needed that. He turned out to be everything they thought he would be, a Pro Bowl caliber player. What's wrong with that? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Zach Martin, it was a first-round pick. He's going to end up in the Hall of Fame. Quentin Nelson may end up in the Hall of Fame. These were very high interior offensive linemen. People always had this thing about, you can't take a guard or a center that high. Why not? If he's best at his position, what's wrong with having best at his position on your team? I don't care what position it is. And the running back part, I have found it to be odd, and I'm assuming it would start to swing back the other way. The market depressed their salaries. That's one thing, right? It's another thing that everyone got in their mind, this stupid groupthink that, like, every running back's the same. You can get a really good player in the 3rd round. Why would you bother taking one in the 1st round? Guess what? Bijan Robinson is way better than all these other running backs that were taken in the 3rd, 4th round, because he just happens to be better than all of them. He has a higher level of talent. And so I don't apologize for this. I've never understood this. If you find somebody who is, especially, this is the weirdest part about this position, they can change games. Like, Saquon Barkley took the Eagles from being really, really, really good to unstoppable last year. Jahmyr Gibbs was on the best offense ever last year. And it's my opinion that he's the reason why it changed. Not just that they were really well coordinated, not that just they had a great offensive line, not that just that Goff is really good in this offense. Maybe not the greatest quarterback, but really good in this offense. And they have very, very good receivers, skill position guys. But what changed this last year? Him. He's unstoppable. And they laughed at them when they picked him at number 12. They laughed at them. They were like, you guys are crazy. He might be the best player in the NFL right now. So I think, honestly, like, that the front office needs to go with their gut, with their rankings, with what they know about the people and what they think they can do for a team. And don't worry about the stupid groupthink of, you can't take a running back early or you can't take a guard early. Yes, you can. If they're the best at their position, you obviously can. And in the case of the Commanders, I would say they need this. I think they need a lot of things. Like, I'm not trying to pretend they don't need an edge rusher or another corner or potentially a safety or could do better in receiver or could use another interior offensive lineman, honestly. But like, this is also a need. And if the best player available is Hampton or Henderson at the time they're picking, I don't think that they should apologize for that for a second.
Well, I think what happens here, too, is to your point about the drafting of the running backs and those really good running backs. I think what happened with the value was, oh, well, if you don't have one of those studs, then you can wait and draft yours whenever you want. The problem is all the studs got stuck up in the wash 2 years ago. Remember, it was Barkley, it was Jones, it was Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs.
Those guys got caught up in the wash too. And I remember going, those are actually top 5 players at their position. Why are they getting caught up in all of this? And it finally did hit the reset button where all those guys found homes. And Derrick Henry too falls in that category. Like, he's older, but he was still very productive, obviously.
Yes.
So I think what happened too is the elite running backs got caught up in this somehow. And I remember even shaking my head going, those guys could actually play. So I don't understand what's happening there. I think what basically has happened now is there's a consensus of, oh, whoever the best running back in the draft usually is a difference maker. It's everyone else falling in line. Are they good enough to actually draft at this point? So I think that's where the argument comes in. It's a little bit like quarterback now, right? I call quarterbacks pass fail. I think you can tell within 2 years whether a guy's ready or not. I guess with running backs, it's, are they dynamic or are they not? And are they worth taking in the first round if they are, essentially?
Yes. I mean, all of these are a little bit different. Henry was on a team that was totally resetting and he was older. And so, like, you know what? That happens. You have to make a choice here. He's still really good. Do you want him to, is it important for you, even if the team's not very good, to finish his career there? You know, and like, so that's one thing. McCaffrey was a 50-50 to me. McCaffrey was, I think they traded him because he had been injured so many times that they were concerned that giving him the type of contract that he was going to get, because when he's healthy, he's the best in the business, that giving him that could be a mistake. And as it turned out, they're right and wrong about it. This is like, there's a little bit of Patrick Corbin here. Like, they gave him a contract that he's never going to fulfill in the end because he can't stay healthy anymore. But in the interim, for a couple of seasons, he was incredible, right? So that was kind of the cost dynamic. These other ones, like Jacobs and Barkley, are the two, and this is another reason why, if you are a Giants fan, how in the world you could be confident with the decisions that are made by your front office right now. I don't know how you would be. And honestly, I'm not really totally sure why the ownership wanted to stick through this. And maybe they'll prove everybody right, and they'll end up putting together a really good team, and they'll end up being really good, because I actually think this offseason, at least defensively, they've done a pretty nice job. But on the Barkley and Jacobs decisions, that was solely based on, we've decided that running backs can only make a certain amount of money, period. That's it. And we don't think that you're any different than other players. Meantime, Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay, looks every bit as good as he did in Vegas, and Barkley had the best season any running back has ever had, all over them saying, this is our line in the sand over running backs. And that is mistaken groupthink. That's you going, if we sign him to this, people are going to mock us because we gave him more money than other running backs get. Meantime, you're telling a first ballot Hall of Famer he's not worth the extra money on top of whatever he was getting. It's just backwards thinking to me. I've never felt that. I would never be subject to the market states you can only be this. You don't do anything crazy. If the top running back gets 15 million, you don't give him 30. Like, I understand that, but like, you do give him 15.5 when he's Saquon Barkley, because he's different than everybody else. It's not a recognition of it. So that's why I don't know that Hampton or Henderson, if they're available at 29, are Saquon Barkley. And in fact, they probably aren't. But if this front office thinks that, one, they need this, and I agree they do, and they think that either one of these guys could be the difference-making, explosive playmaker that we've been talking about for months, that helps them alongside Deebo Samuel supercharge an already really good offense and make it a top 5, almost unstoppable type of offense because of all the dynamic playmakers. You do it and you don't think twice about it, and you brush aside the bloggers and the hot takers who say you don't take running backs in the first round and you needed an edge rusher. And what were you thinking? I'm not even thinking twice about this if this is the way they end up going.
No, I mean, I would agree with you on this too. Like, I think also the more we watched Hard Knocks is that Joe Shane was just like such just a guy as a GM. Like, watching him, his decision making was just like, oh, you're just doing what everyone else is doing. You're not actually making a team the way you want to make your team. So I will say that with Barkley, at least in that decision too. I think he was afraid to make his own decision on that too, and lets Barkley go eventually. And I'm with you. Like, if they get, let's just say they get a speedster and who could be a home run hitter, all of a sudden the offense changes so much. Like, I do think that was one of the problems with B-Rob and Eckler, as a tandem, was they just didn't have home run speed either. Like, they were very solid, good running backs at the time, had some great runs. But in terms of actually being kind of like a dynamic part of the offense, I would say they were not. And this is not me like knocking them. Those are the types of players that they are. They make, as you said, the singles or the doubles type play. But if they can get somebody that's even just a speedster, that's a change up back, all of a sudden you go hurry up with that offense. It is damn near impossible to stop, especially with Jaden back there and the decision making that he makes.
Yeah, I have more and more and more, and I've been talking about this for weeks. I'm like, I think they need this. Like, I just think they need this. And if they don't go this direction, I'm very confident in Robinson and Eckler coming back and being productive again. Like, I don't think they don't have a running back. I think they do. The question is, can they upgrade? And can they get somebody that defenses have to deal with? Just imagine if you put a dynamic running back next to Daniels. How are teams going to, I'm very curious. Two things about Daniels moving forward. And this is a fair ask. There's a season's worth of film on him now. There's a season's worth of film on this offense now. What happens? People are going to adjust. Like, he's not definitively going to have the same season that he's had before. He's not definitively going to be converting every fourth down from here forward. He's not definitively going to have the same completion percentage. They're going to throw things at him. Secondarily, I think they went up tempo a lot for a lot of reasons. One, they trusted him, right? They clearly trusted him. They went more up tempo than anybody else in the league a year ago, and by far. And they showed it early. And I do think that a little bit of it was they clearly trust this guy, which is unusual for someone at this stage of his career, but they clearly trust him. But I think it also was somewhat of an admission that we don't have dynamic playmakers around here at all times. We have to keep matchups to our benefit on the field when we feel it. And when we feel like we have it, we can't let them substitute. We have to keep moving forward, and we have to try to win with attrition and let Jaden make plays. By the end of the season, I do think that caught up with them a little bit. The offensive line was very beat up, which means they were running more plays than everybody else. They were playing at a different tempo. I remember in the middle of the season wondering, can they keep doing this? Because it's going to catch up with them. Look what happened to the run game as things kind of progressed. They were not able to get a lot of explosive plays. This doesn't mean they won't go up tempo, but I wonder if they have a group of players that are dynamic playmakers, will they manage the season and manage games a little bit differently than they did in the past because they feel trustworthy of the players that are out there, and they're not looking for some kind of strategic edge to try to, we got to keep going. We can't let them substitute. Let's try to tire them out. Let's see if Jaden makes a couple of plays where they just make mistakes because they're out on the field too long, as opposed to, we don't need to do this. We got Deebo Samuel, fill-in-the-blank running back, Terry McLaurin. We feel like we can go toe-to-toe with anybody. Good luck stopping us. And that would be, I think, for the offensive line, too, that I think it started to wear on them. People started to get hurt. They were not having the same protections. The running game went sideways. Remember how many times they rushed for over 200 yards early in the season? They couldn't come anywhere near something like that by the end of the season, even against average to bad defenses. I think because the season got long on them, because this is how they decided to attack it. They're not wrong. They ended up 12-5. They ended up with the rookie of the year at quarterback. Like, they got it all right. But will they think about a long season differently if they had an array of playmakers that they trusted a little bit more?
Well, I think the other factor here, too, was down the stretch, the offense just decided to go full-blown, put the ball in Jaden's hands because of all of those. And like, once again, I think I said this when they were in the middle of the run. I don't mind that either, because you can make worse decisions than put it in Jaden's hands. But I'm trying to remember the tipping point game where I kind of said they need to just start putting it in his hands a little bit more. It might have been the Falcons game. I'm trying to remember maybe it was the New Orleans game where I just said the run game is not it. They need to just start putting it in number 5's hands. And that's what they started to do. And so to your point too, like, all of a sudden, if you're the offensive line, you are pass protecting every single play. And all of a sudden, you're doing the same thing. And teams are trying to figure it out. And you don't have an elite offensive line. They had no one else to rely on down the stretch. Like, I remember going into the playoffs thinking, well, Brian Robinson looks like he's kind of out of juice. Like, Eckler, he came back, but he, clearly wasn't the same, right? Then that Detroit game, Robinson was gone a little bit. Like, in the first half, he redeemed himself a little bit in that game. But ultimately, they went back to the same type of offense, which was put the ball in Jaden's hands. And that's mainly because I don't think there was an option besides number 5 down the stretch throwing the ball.
That's right. Yeah, the Detroit playoff game, they were fortunate in how beat up Detroit was on the defensive side of the ball. I walked in going into it going, I don't know how they're this big of an underdog. And I assume that they have a real legitimate chance to win because we're going to score 30 plus, maybe 40 points on them, because that's just the way our offense has been. If you can't get pressure on Jaden Daniels, you're done. I don't care who his receivers are. You're done. And all it was going to take was a couple turnovers. It was going to get flipped sideways. And for the first time all year, they had a big turnover game. And because of that, it went sideways on Detroit. It was more predictable to me that Washington would win that. But everything else leading up to it was, what's Jaden going to do to will them to win?
Yeah.
Can the defense hang on enough, not give enough big plays in the run game more than anything, to assume winning? This team is going to out of its way to address the issues that it has on that side of the ball for sure. Laramie Tunsil gives them a Pro Bowl left tackle. It trickle downs the entire offensive line. And you don't get Laramie Tunsil to go up tempo. You're not telling him that we're run and shoot. You don't get somebody like that. You get Deebo Samuel because you have to get more explosive playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. They got one, and they're motivating him. He's in a show-me deal. It's a one-year deal. You have to be the Deebo Samuel we knew from 3 years ago. Otherwise, this will be we took a shot, it didn't work out, you're gone. You become that guy again. Let's talk about what your future is here, but we need you to be that guy here right now. I still feel like, and I've been saying this for weeks, they need one more. And I don't care which position group it comes from. The tight end group is getting in a run it back situation. I think if they were honest, I think they probably would have looked around and said, we love Zach Ertz. He's awesome, incredible in the locker room, but he's not an explosive playmaker. He's an incredible player in the locker room. He's got an incredible relationship with his teammates and this quarterback, and he's extraordinarily reliable, specifically in the red zone. When we needed him, we had him. But in between the 20s, while he is a reliable player, he is not an explosive modern tight end any longer. So could we have gone there? Maybe, but there was no one available, and you're not going to get the 1 or 2 in the draft. They're going too high. Let's re-sign him, and let's look at other positions. One more receiver or a running back is logical to me, and it has been the whole time. If you can get a pure speed receiver or a running back who's versatile, 3-down back, catch pass out of the backfield, and will hit home runs and will actually have to be game planned for, unlike someone like Robinson, who's a load, is difficult to deal with, is a professional running back. It is really good, but there ain't anybody looking at him going, we better watch out because he made Jahmyr Gibbs us, because he won't. So we're looking for one more, in my opinion, for this year, explosive playmaker. And I think that's why I've constantly led back to, it may not be a 29, but one of those top 2 picks is probably going at this position.
No, I 100% agree. The only thing that I'll even piggyback on what you just said was mainly tight ends. Like, at least they're pretty much saying, well, we drafted Ben Sinnott pretty high last year. Let's see if
Right.
he catches on. Like, at least that gamble is already on the roster, essentially, right? That they can hopefully give him some more snaps, or he earns more snaps, I guess really is what it comes down to. So at least that gamble is on the roster. Everything else you said, though, no, I completely agree. Like, this is the position you look at and you go, okay, you can do a definitive ad here without having to kind of muddy up any of the rest of the roster.
I like Sinnott. I got to know his parents. His parents traveled to every game, so I saw them in the hotels the night before games. I really liked him, his parents, and I liked his family. He's a really nice young man, and I know that they had high hopes that he would be part of this like new wave of core players, and they saw him in various different forms, like almost Kyle Juszczyk style. Like they want to move him around. They think he could be a very good blocker, movable part. He does have really good hands. None of it materialized to the point where he played a lot. I would describe him as this way. This is a huge year for him.
Yep.
And I don't know that I would go so far as to say they have to change opinions about him, but I will say I don't think he lived up to what they thought he was going to be as a rookie. That doesn't mean that he can't change that this offseason. But if we are in November and he's not playing very much and we don't have injuries to excuse for that, that's going to be very telling about his future. So he's getting a second go at this, and he's getting an opportunity to be the replacement for Zach Ertz as the primary tight end, receiving tight end. Bates is under contract as the inline blocking tight end and outlet source every once in a while, but they need Sinnott to be the replacement for Ertz, or we'll be talking about that position next offseason again.
No, and I mean, I remember too, like, I can't recall specific games, but I do remember there were specific plays where, like, they would game it up to try to give him a pass here and there too, like, where they would specifically try to go for him. So it tells me too, like, they were trying to ease him into this offense a little bit, and hopefully with an offseason of work and then getting into training camp and working with everything. Sometimes, as I like to say, sometimes these guys just need to learn how to be a professional, and it's a lot easier for others than it is, for certain other players. So I'm hopeful because especially you don't just game up a play or two during a season because you like a guy. It's usually because you earn it and that you have faith that he's going to make a play. So once again, the tight end gamble is on the roster to me. And that's not the worst strategy in the world with the way that Ertz played last year either. That's actually one of the position groups I'm fine with heading into the season with.
Yes. He and Luke McCaffrey fall into a similar category to me. And I will say this, in fairness to both of them, they kind of asked both of them to kind of learn multiple positions.
Yeah.
Luke McCaffrey was at every wide receiver position and then obviously was playing special teams as well. So they were asking a lot of him. Like they didn't settle him into a role and say, you're this. They tried him here. And I think eventually they're going to hope that he finds his role. Sinnott was similar. There was kind of fullback aspects to him. There was blocking tight end aspects to him. And there was the Ertz receiving tight end aspects to him. So to be fair to him, he probably felt a little overwhelmed early. But this is the year, and this might be incumbent a little bit on the coaches in both of them to go, okay, we've spent a year with you. This is where we think your strengths are. This is where we think you fit. We need you to start excelling at these things. And this is why for both of them, it's a huge year. If they don't, they're going to make some changes around them. Maybe less with McCaffrey than with Sinnott. But I think for Sinnott, he's going to get more opportunities than McCaffrey is. Because look at the receiving core. Like Debo and Terry are on the field. The third is going to either be Noah Brown or KJ Osborne, period. That's what it's going to be. McCaffrey's going to get out there when he gets out there, at least on offense. Sinnott, I think the object is to get him out there a lot more and show that this is your job for us for the future. That's why we drafted you as high as we did. And in Sinnott's case, he's an extraordinary athlete. Like you should see the video of him playing hockey when he was growing up. He looks like Tom Wilson. Like he is a tremendous athlete. So this is a big year for him. It's a prove it year for him. I also think it's incumbent on the coaches to find his role where he's comfortable and can excel. So it's a two-sided thing, but it's a big year for Ben Sinnott for sure.
No, I'd say out of all the draft picks last year, he's the one that we need to see something from. Like that's just just to see something from. Like, and because we didn't see much last year, so yeah, he's the one that I'm circling. Of this could be the first guy that we have, kind of pegged as maybe this pick didn't work out, or it does work out, maybe with a little bit of development.
Yes, it's only his second year. He's an extraordinary athlete. He does work hard. He's a really nice young man. So I'm hoping to see it, because I think he's got the athletic ability to be this. Let's hope he grows into it. All right, I'll be right back. Prairie Boston Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. I want to go back to Albert Breer's mailbag because a number of the questions that he got were about the Giants. And we were talking earlier about Joe Shane and their whole ideas of what running backs are worth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Albert has come to a conclusion that I think is going to be the case too. I will be surprised if they select Shedeur Sanders. I do not believe that is what they're going to do. I believe Cam Ward is going to go number 1. It sounds like to Tennessee because there seems to be no smoke about anybody moving up to get him. And it sounds like Tennessee's fallen in love with him. And we'll see what they do with Will Levis after that. Do they make him the backup? Do they move him post the draft? That's a possibility. There are a couple teams that are still kind of figuring out quarterbacks. So maybe he finds a different place. Who knows? We'll see. Or maybe they keep him for a year and say, you're going to be the primary backup, or who knows? You might start over Cam Ward at least early. Who knows what they're going to do? Number 2, Cleveland is a wild card. They could take best player available, or they could take Shedeur at that point. I don't get the feeling that they're going to do that. And Albert Breer kind of settled on the Giants at 3, even though they obviously need a young quarterback. Seems to be, at least to him, and I agree with this, that Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter is going to be their pick. And I don't believe both will be available. One will, unless they get lucky and Shedeur does go number 2 somehow. And if that happens, then they'll have their choice between them. But that's what I'm expecting. And if it is Abdul Carter that's available to them, that's going to be an interesting decision for them because they've already paid Brian Burns. They've already used the top 10 pick on Kayvon Thibodeau, whose contract will be coming up in a year or whatever it is. To take Abdul Carter screams that they're trading Thibodeau. So I can't, as much of a great prospect he is, of all times to have something like that sitting in your lap, if that's the person who's available at 3, I don't actually know what the Giants are going to do. And I would almost advocate at that point they should trade back.
I do know that the first part of this is the correct decision. They shouldn't take a quarterback here. They already went through this with Daniel Jones. They should have never taken a quarterback in that draft. They did. It essentially ruined them for 5 years, 6 years running at this point. Now, at this point, go with the best defensive player. You and I like what they've done on defense, too, with free agency and how the roster is starting to be built with them, too. I think this is the best way to go.
On defense.
Yeah,
on defense.
No, yeah.
Yes.
Specifically on defense.
Yeah.
That's it. I didn't say on offense.
Yeah.
Only on defense. And to me, you keep building up that side of the ball. Those players will play themselves into contracts, sticking around, etc. I'm a firm believer these days of if you have a quarterback weak draft and you still need one, you have to just grin and bear it and not take one that year. Because I'm telling you that whatever team takes Shedeur or takes Jackson Dart, if they're a team that needs a quarterback, it's still going to set them back a year or two because they're going to still see if the jury is out on them. People rarely go the Cardinals Rosen route these days. It still takes 2 years to figure out with these guys. I don't think it should, but organizations hang their hat on these picks. I think this is the right call for the Giants. And even if they do end up going with Carter, guess what? Look at the edge rusher market these days. They'll be able to flip Thibodeau for some assets, which might not be the worst thing 100%. In the world, which isn't the worst thing in the world for them if they need a quarterback. So, honestly, if they go with one of those two, I think it's a win-win. They also are still going to need their quarterback eventually anyways. This is just them, asset management is what this has turned into for them. And that's the way you should do it if you don't have one of these guys yet.
The way that they've handled their assets, though, if I was a Giants fan, I would be concerned. If they took Abdul Carter and that they have to move Kayvon Thibodeau, are they going to figure out how to do that that's the most beneficial way for the Giants?
Yeah.
And this is where it comes back to, do you actually believe that the right people are in charge right now in making decisions? And, we'll see where they go with that. I don't believe Shedeur will be picked by them. I still firmly believe that in the background there is, and they're almost admitting it, him and Dion, that there are places they want him to go and there are places they don't want him to go. And maybe some of those teams want him and he doesn't want to go there. And maybe some of those teams don't want him and that's fine. Right. And so there's no problem. But and this may be a lot more players, but he said something again this week in an interview where he said, I tell it like it is. And some coaches really like this about me and some coaches really don't, which is almost telling on yourself. Like you are saying to certain teams, I'm going to tell you what I think of you and your team, which is that's not the greatest job interview technique unless you don't care and you just know you're trying to direct where you want to go. So they say they're open to everybody because that's the right thing to say. But too many times, Dion and Shador now are hinting they've told people things they know they do not want to hear from them. And it sounds like purposefully. So where does he want to go? I don't know. Will he get to where he wants to go? Hard to say. Things changed. I had a funny feeling they wanted to go to Vegas. Then Pete Carroll was hired, and then they just got Geno Smith. They're not picking him. So I don't know where he wants to go or where he wants to be, but he's too loud about this stuff where he says things openly. Yeah, I tell coaches what I think about it, and if they don't like it, they don't like it.
I mean, I think yesterday was a perfect example. He had a visit with Pittsburgh. Okay, guys do visits all the time, right? Like we used to joke about this, how Washington would have a top 5, top 10 pick, and they would bring in the quarterbacks to do their interviews. That's what you do, right? Like no matter how incompetent this organization used to be, they would bring in the guys for the visits at least. Well, then yesterday he's doing all of these interviews. He's doing the rounds with Kay Adams and the NFL Network, and they're asking him about Mike Tomlin, and he's answering the question of like, oh, I love Mike. Everything is, like great with Pittsburgh. I'd love to be coached by him. When's the last time you saw a top 10 pick actually answering those questions? So I think yesterday, too, was a little bit of the PR spin for Shador of like, oh, we definitely would want to go here if it ends up working out. And here it is. They don't have a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers hasn't signed on all of a sudden. I think this is one where, yeah, he's definitely manipulating where he wants to and where he can go, essentially.
I agree. Today, Joe Flacco is going back to the Browns, Han, which is he had his career rebirth and he won Comeback Player of the Year. And after Deshaun, I don't know, got hurt, embarrassed everybody, whatever it was, they ended up in the playoffs with him. And what your theory was, Deshaun couldn't handle him being there because he got too
100%.
Popular in Cleveland, and therefore he walked away. When Indianapolis tried, I called it last year in the middle of the season, when they benched Anthony Richardson and went to him, I go, this is not going to work. And the reason why this isn't going to work is because the Colts defense isn't good enough. The Browns, people forget, they had like a top 3 defense that year. They just needed competent quarterbacking to be in every game, and you get some momentum. You start to win a little bit, and then Flacco got his groove back a little bit. In Indianapolis, that wasn't the case. They don't have really good skill position players, and they don't have a top 5, top 10 defense, and therefore that wasn't going to work. And then they ended up doing the right thing, was just go back to Richardson. You got to find out what you have in him. He goes back to Cleveland. He gets to compete. They're clearly not done figuring out who their quarterback is, but maybe for a year he might be it. Unless they, I don't know. Do they really want to get Kirk Cousins? I don't know. We'll have to just see.
To me, too, if you remember 2 seasons ago as well, that skill position group was really good for Flacco. It was, I think it was Cooper, Landry, I think was still there. Chubb was healthy, and Njoku got really hot when Flacco came in, too. That was a solid offense with some skill position players that he could just throw the ball up to, and it was good. And yes, I still stand on my theory. Deshaun is so insecure, he didn't want the guy that led them to the playoffs on the roster, even though he was going to cost them nothing to stick around. By the way, too, did you see what Deshaun said yesterday or posted on Instagram yesterday? Did you happen to see what he said? Yeah, exactly. I mean, dude, some players just don't know when to shut up. It's not about people doubting you with the injury. It's you getting injured and what you brought off the field. That's why no one believes in you. Your own owner said it was a mistake to trade for you. Put your head down and just go to work. I can't with this guy. I can't.
So he had an Achilles injury. So he's probably not playing this year. And whether he could get back in time to play or not, the Browns don't want him to, right?
Correct.
He's never going to play another down for them again. And when the owner says this was a massive mistake and it's our fault, blame us, swing and a miss, he's not going to be there. You know what, Deshaun? Put your money where your mouth is. You want to
Right.
show everybody? Alter your contract, make it non-guaranteed so they can trade you.
Right.
You want to prove it? You're going to have to prove it somewhere else. If you get out of the guaranteed portion of that contract and say, this is the amount I want that's guaranteed, much lower. Here are all the incentives. There will be teams that will take a chance on you and say, okay, as long as it's not cost prohibitive. And for the Browns, it would get them out of jail with that contract. It would get them an opportunity to get away from this and move on. It's a win-win for everybody. So, Deshaun, you want to show everybody you'll be way better than before? I can tell you how to do it. Change your contract right now. If you alter it so the whole thing isn't guaranteed for the next 2 years, they could trade you, and I bet you they'll trade you wherever you want to go. So there you go. You want to be better? There's your answer. I bet you don't do that, though. I bet you don't do that.
0% chance you would ever do that. 0% chance you would ever do that.
Yeah, of course. All right, let me take a quick break. Brave Watch the Show is at 6:30 at Sports Capital. The Masters are back, and there's money to be made. Golf's most iconic tournament tees off this week, and MyBookie is the ultimate spot to cash in on every swing, upset, and Sunday charge. Outrights, matchups, live betting, long shot bombs with MyBookie Money Bag. If there's an edge, you'll find it here. Not only that, but this weekend also coincides with UFC 314. If you're new to MyBookie, I've got something you're going to want to take advantage of. Deposit any amount, $50 up to $2,000, and get matched instantly with promo code MM50. No waiting, and you don't need to bet to receive it, just bonus cash right away. If you got a read on Augusta or just looking to take advantage of a Michael Chandler boost for UFC 314, now is the time to fire. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. All right, welcome back. Last night, I was honored by the DC Touchdown Club, which is also the board members of the Military Bowl, which I work with every year as an in-game host, sideline reporter, whatever you want to call it. I love working with them. I love their mission. Money gets donated to Patriot Point, which is a recovery center on the Eastern Shore that has an amazing mantra for bringing back, wounded soldiers, wounded physically, wounded mentally, people who need to reincorporate back into life, get their lives back in order. And it's just a wonderful respite place for service members to go and heal. And so I really, appreciate being part of that mission. And, not that I'm trying to toot my own horn, but they always mention it every time. Like I donate what they pay me back to Patriot Point. So I don't make any money by doing it. So last night, Doc Walker, MC of the, entire region, somehow double booked himself and could not MC this last night. And they asked me to do that. So it was a real honor to MC the Touchdown Club dinner. I told a story last night where I'm like, I used to go to this when I was a kid with my Aunt Irma, which I won't share the same story. I could share that another time, but she was a huge Redskins fan and was a member of the original Touchdown Club and used to take me to the dinners. And sometimes some of the Redskins would show up and it was just like it was like a rally around it. Now it's a Congressional Country Club. It's a big event. It's raising a lot of money for all these great causes, surrounded by the Military Bowl and, of course, all the military charities that they do. And it was really cool. We got to honor Mark Rippon. John Riggins came. We got to honor John Riggins. He gave a speech last night. We honored Jaden Daniels, who unfortunately couldn't be there, but he was the most obvious choice of pro player of the year in the area. So we got to honor him. Every year we get to pick a best player from Maryland, Virginia, and DC high school. One of them was Malik Washington. So Coach Loxley showed up last night, introduced Malik Washington, who's going to be hopefully the next great quarterback for the Terps, whether it's this year, next year, whatever. Hopefully he's going to be the next great quarterback for the Terps. We honored a couple of legendary coaches, including the coach from Patuxent, who has this absurd record and went 14-0 this year and has built a powerhouse in Southern Maryland. And we got to honor Tim Brandt. That was really awesome, too. I got to introduce Tim Brandt last night as kind of like a career achievement. 40 years he spent on ABC 7 here, WJLA. And I forgot the other parts because he reminded us, he's like, I worked with Keith Jackson in the booth, Mike Tirico in the booth. He named every legendary broadcaster that he worked with. So it was really cool. It was an awesome experience. And I just wanted to thank them for giving me the opportunity to MC it last night because I really, it was a joy and a privilege and an honor to do that last night. It was really cool.
I've worked with them before a little bit too as well because they do sometimes hook us up with some of the on-air stuff. It's always a great organization.
Yeah, it really was. Okay, let's end with the Capitals here, who had the Alex comes home. I saw all the mites did the belly flop during an intermission last night. It was a celebration of a record that is almost unthinkable that was passed. I don't know that anyone's going to come anywhere near it for a very long time. There are a couple candidates that could do it, but boy, they'd have to play a really, really, really long time. And then everyone was treated to a really fun game where the Caps did blow a late lead, a third period lead. Carolina did score on a 6-on-5 goal late to send it into overtime. Washington ended up winning in a shootout. And with 4 games left, by virtue of the 2 points, the Capitals are the top seed in the East. And it'll be very interesting to see what do they do here with these final 4 games before they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this weekend's going to be telling. They have a back-to-back against Columbus, home-and-home series, 12:30 tomorrow, then 6 o'clock on Sunday at Capital One Arena. I think we're going to see on Sunday how they handle this down the stretch. If someone gets rested, maybe we see some ice time go down for some guys. They're literally not playing for anything. And off of last night's game, too, that second period was exactly what that team needed. They scored 1 goal in the first, then 3 straight in the second. They looked like the old Caps, the Caps that we have seen for the last 5 months in that second period. Yes, they blew the lead in the third. Carolina's a good team, but I was just more satisfied whether they were going to win or lose this game against the Hurricanes. It meant nothing, essentially. And with that, they played how I wanted them to play. So let's see how they play this weekend against Columbus. Columbus is pretty much eliminated. I think there still is a shot they can make it, but they've got to win a lot of games down the stretch. And looking at, how they do this moving forward, I think they should rest some guys. The one hope that I have here, though, is that Logan Thompson gets a game in before the playoffs if he's healthy enough. He didn't practice at all this week. Alexei Protas didn't practice at all this week. So this is the other thing as we kind of head into the last week of the season. Can they get some time for some of these guys that have been banged up a little bit? Either way, though, that second period was great. I'm just glad they got back to playing it the way that we know that they can play.
All right. In the meantime, I'll catch up with all of you when the playoffs are set to begin. And I'll get you set for draft week with the Commanders in the NFL because next week is spring break in Montgomery County. So my family and I are going on a vacation out west, which I'll tell you about. Archer will see Las Vegas for the first time in his life. And I can't wait to see his eyes pop out of his head. And then we're going to do some other fun stuff. So I'll be off all of next week. And I look forward to talking to you all in 10 days. Brave Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.